The science of miracles. What exactly is a miracle? Is miracle that which is actually unexplainable, or it is something yet to be understood? In today's video, we will go through certain lectures of Swami Vivekananda and we will understand what exactly is a miracle. We will look at some extraordinary instances and happenings that Swami Vivekananda personally witnessed, and we will see how Swamiji explains this and how we can make sense of miracles. The Advaita channel is about consciousness, conscious living, and conscious creation. Here we explore Vedanta and various other spiritual teachings from India to understand the nature of reality and to consciously create our lives. In the first part, I will simply read a few paragraphs from Swami Vivekananda's speech regarding the powers of the mind and miracles. All over the world, there has been the belief in the supernatural throughout the ages. All of us have heard of extraordinary happenings, and many of us have had some personal experience of them. I would rather introduce the subject by telling you certain facts which I have come within my own experience. I once heard of a man who, if anyone went to him with questions in his mind, would answer them immediately. And I was also informed that he foretold events. I was curious and went to see him with a few friends. We each had something in our minds to ask, and to avoid mistakes, we wrote down our questions and put them in our pockets. As soon as the man saw one of us, he repeated our questions and gave answers to them. Then he wrote something on paper which he folded up, asked me to sign on the back, and said, "Don't look at it. Put it in your pocket and keep it till I ask for it." And so on to each one of us. He next told us about some events that would happen to us in the future. Then he said, "Now think of a word or a sentence from any language you like." I thought of a long sentence from Sanskrit, a language of which he was entirely ignorant. "Now take out the paper from your pocket," he said. The Sanskrit sentence was written there. He had written it an hour before with the remark, "In confirmation of what I have written, this man will think of this sentence." It was correct. Another of us who had been given a similar paper, which he had signed and placed in his pocket, was also asked to think of a sentence. He thought of a sentence in Arabic, which it was still less possible for the man to know. It was some passage from the Quran, and my friend found this written down on the paper. Another one of us was a physician. He thought of a sentence from a German medical book. It was written on his paper. Several days later, I went to this man again, thinking possibly I had been deluded somehow before. I took other friends, and in this occasion also, he came out wonderfully triumphant. Now the story is pretty straightforward. The man was able to read others' minds. Not only that, he could already anticipate the questions that people were going to ask him in the future, and he could write down the answers to them. Now to most of us, this is a miracle. This is either a false made up story, or this is some kind of a trick that the person is playing. And for years, I used to think like this. All these things are not possible. Either the person is tricking us, or the entire happening is a lie. But just think about where we are today in terms of science and technology, and compare this to a few decades in the past. Albert Einstein equated energy to mass through his famous equation E equals mc square. Now, because of this equation and because of his work, a lot of technological advancements and a lot of other innovations happened. Now, if we had thought of these innovations like the atomic bomb, like the mobile phones, and the technology that we use today in our daily lives, these things would seem impossible to us just a few decades before. What reality is, none of us truly understand. And the more and more we try to understand this reality, the stranger and stranger it will look to us. With this, I will read about a second story from this very speech. Another time, I was in the city of Hyderabad in India, and I was told of a Brahmin there who could produce a number of things from nowhere. This man was in business there. He was a respectable gentleman, and I asked him to show me his tricks. It so happened that this man had a fever, and in India there is a general belief that if a holy man puts his hand on a sick man, he would be well. This Brahmin came to me and said, "Sir, put your hands on my head so that my fever may be cured." I said, "Very good, but you show your tricks to me." He promised. I put my hand on his head as desired, and later he came to fulfill his promise. He had only a strip of cloth about his loins. We took off everything else from him. I had a blanket which I gave him to wrap round himself because it was cold, and made him sit in a corner. 25 pairs of eyes were looking at him. And he said, "Now look, write down anything you want." We all wrote down names of fruits that never grew in that country. Bunch of grapes, oranges, and so on. And we gave him those bits of paper. And there came from under his blanket grapes, oranges, and so forth. So much that if all that fruit was weighed, it would have been twice as heavy as the man. He asked to eat the fruit. Some of us objected, thinking it was hypnotism, but the man began eating himself. So we all ate. It was all right. He ended by producing a mass of roses. Each flower was perfect, with dewdrops on the petals. Not one crushed, not one injured, and masses of them. When I asked the man for an explanation, he said, "It is all sleight of hand." Whatever it was, it seemed to be impossible that it could be sleight of hand merely. From where he could have got such large quantities of things. Now here Swami Vivekananda is speaking about another story where a person who was able to produce things from nowhere, different fruits, different flowers out of thin air. This is called materialization. Now even this is a miracle to us. But is it actually a miracle, or is it something that we are yet to discover the logic behind? Now, if we look at the framework of Advaita Vedanta, what this philosophy tells us is that the universe that we see all around us is a projection in consciousness, and the time-space reality is simply Maya. It's a illusion, and some yogis can train themselves to master this illusion and to go beyond this illusion. And once they master this manifested reality called Maya, they can manipulate it the way they want. This may be a miracle to us, but it is natural to them. With this, let us try to understand how Swami Vivekananda goes on to explain these phenomenon. In very remote times in India, thousands of years ago, these facts used to happen even more than they do today. It seems to me that when a country became so thickly populated, physical power deteriorates. Given a vast country thinly inhabited, there will perhaps be more physical power there. These facts, the Hindus being analytically minded, took up and investigated, and they came to certain remarkable conclusions. That is, they made a science out of it. They found out that all these, though extraordinary, are also natural. There is nothing supernatural. They are under laws just the same as any other physical phenomenon. It is not a freak of nature that a man is born with such powers. They can be systematically studied, practiced, and acquired. This science they call the science of Raja Yoga. There are thousands of people who cultivate the study of this science, and for the whole nation it has become a part of daily worship. The conclusion they have reached is that all these extraordinary powers are in the mind of man. The mind is a part of the universal mind. Each mind is connected with every other mind, and each mind, wherever it is located, is in actual communication with the whole world. Have you ever noticed the phenomenon that is called thought transference? A man here is thinking something, and that thought is manifested in somebody else, in some other place. With preparations, not by chance, a man wants to send a thought to another mind at distance, and this other mind knows that a thought is coming and he receives it exactly as it is sent out. Distance makes no difference. If the two minds were isolated, this wouldn't be possible. And Swamiji goes on to say this shows that there is a continuity of mind, as the yogis call it. The mind is universal. Your mind, my mind, all these little minds are fragments of that universal mind, little waves in the ocean, and on account of this continuity, we can convey our thoughts directly to one another. You see what is happening all around us. The world is of one influence. Part of our energy is used up in the preservation of our own bodies. Beyond that, every particle of energy is day and night being used in influencing others. So we looked at a lot of things here. But basically what we need to understand for today is that this universe is stranger than what it looks on the surface level. The entire universe is energy. At the fundamental level, it is one. All the manifestations are at the surface level. And a person or a yogi who is beyond this illusory duality has control over this reality. And through various practices and sadhana, these yogis can have tremendous powers within this manifested universe. Whether it is levitation, whether it is walking through walls, whether it is materialization, dematerialization, mentalism, etc. All these show us that the reality is simply a projection. And Swami Vivekananda says all these powers come from the power of the mind. This only shows us how powerful our mind is. And if we only master our mind, we master this reality itself. Now, I personally do not pay a lot of attention or interest to these miracles and to these tricks. And all the great spiritual teachers and gurus tell us to go beyond these tricks and miracles, to seek something which is eternal and which is truly infinite. So that should be the goal for each and every one of us.